live stream.
I thought they'd done that.
No, we haven't. No, it's okay.
They done it. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's meeting of full council. Welcome also to those members of the public and press accessing the meeting via the live stream to YouTube. In order to ensure the overall sound quality, both within the room and virtually, may I take this opportunity to remind member and officer colleagues to turn their mobile telephones to silent and ensure that when addressing the meeting, they speak directly into the microphones, ensuring that the red light is on. Microphones should then be switched off when they're not in use. We now move to agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Can I ask member services to report any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you. We've had apologies from councillors Booth, Gerstner, Hay, Mrs Laws, Marks, Miss Scanlon and Rocket. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move to item 2 on the agenda for today's meeting, in accordance with paragraph 2.2 of the standing orders, I would like to announce that I have permitted an urgent item which was not included on the original summons to be placed before the council for consideration today. The extra item is a motion submitted by Councillor Tierney in relation to the proposed Medworth incinerator and now appears on the agenda as item 15. I considered this item to be urgent on the basis that there is a period of only 6 weeks within which it would be possible to initiate a judicial review of the Medworth Energy from Waste Combined Heat and Power Facility Development consent decision, thought to have been taken by the Secretary of State for Energy, Security and Net Zero as published on the 21st of February 2024. While it is noted, however, that the previously published content on the Planning Inspectorate website has since been removed for clarification, there still remains a very short period of time within which action can be taken, should the outcome remain the same. After this meeting, there are no further meetings of full council until the 13th of May 2024, and I therefore considered it necessary to provide an opportunity for the proposed motion to be debated today. Finally, in accordance with paragraph 2.3 of the standing orders, as there are a number of items of business on the agenda today, and because we have members of public in attendance specifically to hear the debate of item 15, I would like to propose, with the council's agreement, that this is instead considered before item 7 of the agenda. Is that agreed, please? Thank you. Agenda item 3, previous minutes. The minutes of the council meeting held on the 11th of December 2023 are shown on pages 3 to 14 of the agenda pack. I would like to move approval of the minutes. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hoy. Thank you. Thank you, members. If you have any comments, then please raise your hand. Councillor Carney.
Just to note that the discussion regarding food sourcing within Fenland, the local authority made reference to as Oxfordshire County Council, not Hertfordshire, as quoted in the minutes. So I'd like to see that corrected for the record. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, councillor. Any other comments? Thank you. The minutes are therefore approved with the suggested amendment from Councillor Carney. Agenda item 3, civic engagement update. For information, you'll find at page 15 of the agenda pack a list of the civic engagements I have attended in the weeks preceding full council. Unfortunately, I had to cancel 2 engagements following the death of my mother shortly before Christmas, but we've picked up the pieces and we've been going out ever since. So thank you for that. Agenda item 4, to receive any announcements from the chairman of the council and or the head of paid services. I don't have any particular announcements to make today. However, I would like to take this opportunity to recognise the efforts of some fellow councillors in assisting their residents during the flooding that has taken place over the winter months. This started on about January the 2nd, and it was even going on up till last week. Particular recognition and thanks go to Councillors Taylor, Councillor Marks, and Councillor Laws, who I know was dealing with stuff last week. They provided practical assistance, hands-on support, which has proven invaluable to a lot of people. I understand that in the January episode, Councillor Taylor and his team pumped out approximately 50 properties. These councillors went above and beyond their roles as they worked hard to help, and I would like to formally thank and applaud them for the exemplary work they carried out. Thank you. There are no announcements from the Chief Executive today, so we'll move on to the next item, which is item number 5, declarations of interest. Agenda item 5 is to receive any declarations of interest under the local code of conduct or any interest under the code of conduct on planning matters in respect of any items to be discussed at this meeting. Since this is the meeting at which members are being asked to consider and vote on various financial matters, the following reminders are relevant alongside the usual requirements for declaring interests. In relation to agenda items 11 and 12, which relate to the corporate budget and council tax resolution under S106 of the Local Government and Finance Act 1992, it is an offence for a councillor to vote if they have an outstanding council tax debt of over 2 months. If this applies to you, then you must disclose that S106 applies when we get to that stage in the agenda, and you will then need to leave the meeting while the item is considered. Further recommendation 3(7) of agenda item 11 relates to the council tax support scheme. In that regard, if a member, their spouse or civil partner, or any person they are living with as husband and wife is in receipt of local council tax support or a related exemption, then a declaration of interest must be made. Following that declaration and assuming that member remains sufficiently open-minded, they may participate in the debate and cast their vote. If you have anything to declare, please can you raise your hand now? Councillor Bowden.
Thank you, Chairman. It's in relation to agenda item 8, the motion concerning bus services, and I'd like to declare that I'm a trustee of FACT, which does provide some bus services within Fenland. However, it is a non-pecuniary interest, and I'm sufficiently remote from this particular matter to be able to exercise judgment without prejudice, so I will participate in the debate.
Thank you. Councillor Clough.
Thank you, Chair. In relation to agenda item 11, I would like to declare an interest with the fact that my husband is Class P, but I will remain sufficiently open-minded and will join in the debate.
Thank you. Councillor Christie.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, regarding item number 8, the motion concerning bus services, to declare that I am the trustee and the chairman of FACT Community Transport, also that my wife works there. It's a non-pecuniary role that I have there. We receive no remuneration or reward for that role, so we'll continue to be involved in the debate.
Thank you. Councillor Seaton.
Thank you, Chairman. Regarding the agenda item 8, I'm also a trustee of the FACT, and it is a non-pecuniary role, and as I say, I will be happy to stay in the room with an open mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any more declarations, please? No. Okay. Thank you. Item 6, to receive questions from and provide answers to councillors in relation to matters which, in the opinion of the chairman, accord with provisions of Procedure Rules 8.4 and 8.6. There have been no written questions submitted in accordance with Rule 8.6, and we will therefore proceed straight to questions under Rule 8.4. Is it Councillor Clark? As Councillor Booth has given his apologies in accordance with paragraph 8.4 of the standing orders, Councillor John Clark, as his nominated representative, do you have any question you would like to ask the leader within the allotted time limit of 20 minutes, please?
Mr. Booth wasn't attending till about 4 minutes ago, so I have nothing at all to ask and no questions. I'm sorry if that causes some disappointment.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to 15. Right. We will now move to agenda item 15, which is the motion submitted by Councillor Tierney with regards to the proposed Medworth incinerator. The next item on the agenda, and as agreed, is the urgent item which I announced at the start of the meeting, and is a motion from Councillor Tierney, which appears at pages 183 to 184 of the agenda pack. Before we move to the presentation of this item, it is acknowledged that this item is of significant local importance and that emotions are running high. However, please can I ask that members give due consideration to any statements they may wish to make before they speak on this matter. Councillor Tierney, would you like to move your motion? You have 5 minutes to present the motion and say anything you wish about it. Your next opportunity to speak will then be when summing up.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I'd like to apologise. I've got a bit of a hoarse voice at the moment, just coming out of the back end of a nasty cold. I'm not going to read the whole motion out. I trust everybody's read it and seen it, but there are some comments I'd like to make. So we've known for a few years now that this proposal was on the cards, and everybody that, to my knowledge, pretty much has been against it. And first, I'd like to commend the work that people have done in trying to fight against it, particularly the local people and local groups who've worked so hard to raise awareness and to fight and to be clearly and make a good stand against it. But also every council, every political group on every council, our MP, the mayor, completely opposite political parties. This is an issue that has forged people together for the most part. Now, I know it's politics and I know that we occasionally take pops at one another and, you know, that's how it goes. But this is an issue on which we all agree. And when I first brought the motions to town, district and county council, the final part of each motion was that we would do everything in our power to fight this to the end. And we're not quite at the end yet. Now, there could be a miracle because we've all seen that the proposal has disappeared and we don't know what that's about. Nobody seems to. Some people have postulated ideas, but we don't know. Perhaps a miracle will come, but let's presume it probably won't. Our last option is going to be a judicial review. Now, judicial reviews are not easy. They cost a lot of money. They take a lot of legal expertise, and there has to be a proper reason to have a review, not just the additional arguments, but a reason through the way that the process has been handled up till now. And what I would like to see, what I hope that we will all agree on today, I'm sure we will actually, is that we will get independent legal advice. We will spare no expense within reason to get independent legal advice as to what we can do. Do we have an argument? Do we have a position? I feel fairly confident we do. Looking at what's gone on, looking at some of the strange things that have happened, I feel positive about it, but that's not for me to say. I'm not a lawyer. But we do owe it to the people of Fenland and to most specifically to the people of Wisbech. But look, this affects much wider than just Wisbech, but specifically to the people of Wisbech. We owe it to all those people to fight this to the very end, to the last option that we have. And we could still win. We could still win. This isn't over yet. So I hope during this debate, although I know we all have slightly nuanced political opinions, we try to remember that we've got to stand together on this, because that's the only way we're going to beat these guys. And I commend my motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Do I have a seconder for the proposal? Councillor Hoy? Councillor Hoy, you can reserve the right to speak at the end of the debate, or you can speak now.
I'll reserve my right, please. Thank you.
Thank you. The item is open for discussion. So, Councillor Patrick? Oh, I haven't quite opened it yet, councillor Patrick. This item is open for discussion and members are reminded that they're able each only to speak once. Councillor Patrick.
Now, bear with me. Councillors, first of all, as a member of the Wiswin campaign team, of course, I fully support this motion. However, before specialist legal solicitors are sought, the technical argument needs to be made. As we know, the costs will be considerable. This technical report will also be expected before other councils would consider providing financial support. The head of UK Win has generally offered to prepare this. He has worked with Wiswin from the outset, is familiar with the proposal, and has also submitted several technical reports to the planning inspectorate, as well as being involved in several successful judicial reviews. Also, two people who lead the successful Kings Lynn campaign with the judicial review have also offered to provide the technical support that Fenton District Council needs. An initial review by UK Win has revealed at least 5 potential grounds for judicial review. Incorrectly treating the energy that would be exported as low carbon energy, failure to adequately consider the impact of the Secretary of State's negative climate weighting on the low carbon premise at the heart of the principle of development's weighting. Errors of fact regarding waste fuel availability and the flawed approach to the non-combustibility of the 19/12/12 waste code that is currently sent to landfill. Reliance on incorrect assumption that the Boston Alternative Energy Facility could only process refuse-derived fuel. And also a logical assumption adopted that if waste was landfilled, it was not recyclable. Additionally, Wiswin has already received offers of several thousands of pounds from UK Win and local businesses, and we will be running a GoFundMe campaign as many people have already offered to support. If this motion is agreed and you set up a committee in the spirit of transparency and to ensure good communication, I would wish to be part of this as a link between the campaign team and the council.
Thank you, councillor Patrick. Councillor Bowden.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. The decision which was announced last week was the wrong decision at the wrong location, at the wrong time, and it was made for the wrong reason. I think there would be very few people in this room today who would disagree with that. Unfortunately, there is no right of appeal against the decision which was made. So the only way in which this can be challenged is by means of a judicial review. Now, a judicial review isn't an appeal. A judicial review doesn't go back and look at all of the evidence. A judicial review doesn't look at the technical arguments which are made. A judicial review certainly doesn't look at any evidence which wasn't presented to the original inspector and considered by the Secretary of State. A judicial review is a judicial process, and there are very few grounds upon which a judicial review can be successful. The most common grounds are that there's been a procedural irregularity in the process coming to the decision, or that the decision is perverse as a result of irrationality in that no reasonable Secretary of State could come to that decision based on the evidence in front of her. There are a number of other possibilities. There can be legal flaws, or something has been overlooked in the decision, or something has been incorrectly included in the decision, or even that there's been some incorrect interpretation of national policy. But generally, we're looking at procedural irregularities or irrationality in legal terms of the decision which is made. So these are very, very restricted grounds upon which a judicial review may be successful. And Virginia Buckner very kindly wrote to Paul Medden to me last week, advising that UK Win is available to give information to us and to assist us. I've consulted with officers and have been told quite clearly that we must appoint our own counsel to give the advice which is required in order to decide whether or not to proceed with a judicial review. And we can't subcontract this out to a third party, especially a pressure group. Having said that, the information that UK Wind may be able to provide to us could be extremely valuable, both in terms of our instructing council and in the final decision which needs to be made. And for that reason, a communication will be going to Virginia Buckner after this meeting or first thing tomorrow morning, asking her as a matter of urgency to provide us with the detailed arguments that Councillor Patrick has just been talking about in terms of the potential grounds that there may be, in the opinion of UK Wind, for a judicial review to be sought. Even if some of these arguments I've just been talking about, for example, a procedural irregularity, even if they are found to have taken place, it doesn't mean to say that we're successful, because it's only if the procedural irregularity could have resulted in a different decision that the judicial review will actually be granted to us. So let us say they may well have made a technical mistake in the way in which they announced the decision last week. Under a judicial review, that could be found to have been incorrect, but then leave would be granted for them to reissue, and it would come to the same conclusion at the end of the day. So it has to be a procedural failure which could have changed the decision which was finally made. I'm saying all of this not to cause people to be dispirited, but to make sure that people, councillors and members of the public, are realistic about the prospects of what we're doing and how we're going about it. We're not fighting the whole campaign again. That's not what a judicial review does. It's not an appeal. It is an examination, almost on a line-by-line basis, of the 60-page decision notice which was issued, to see to what extent any of those failings that I mentioned before may have occurred. Now, it's a very specialized area, this, and whilst all of us can have our opinions about it, the whole reason for this motion and for us going to independent counsel to get counsel's opinion is that we need the specialized knowledge that counsel has got, King's Counsel has got, in order to make sure that we make the best decision that we can based on an independent review of what the likely outcome would be of a judicial review. And it's for that reason that it's particularly important that at the very earliest stage, by which I mean as early as possible this week, that any possible grounds for a judicial review are communicated to our officers, principally to Carol Pilson, and so that those can be put to counsel for them to consider if they haven't picked them up themselves. So I welcome the opportunity from UK Wind to give such advice and such suggestions. I would welcome any other suggestions there may be, but I would emphasize the urgency of time. My understanding is that the publication of the notice last week triggered the 6-week period by which any application for a judicial review needs to be made. But it's not just a case of waiting 6 weeks and then putting something in on the last day. There are processes that you have to go through before that in order successfully to even to apply for a judicial review. So the timescale is extremely tight here. There won't be any committees involved in deciding this. It will be a matter for officers to deal with based on the delegation which is given to them in this motion. I'm not going to pretend that we are guaranteed success here, very far from it. What I am willing to say is that we will do our absolute utmost based on the information that we receive from experienced legal counsel. And I can tell you the person we will be approaching is a very respected and very experienced Queen's Counsel, who's been King's Counsel, my apologies. He was appointed as a Queen's Counsel back in 2008, but he's a very respected King's Counsel of the highest quality, with a lot of experience, particularly of large infrastructure projects which have gone to judicial review. So he really is someone who is appropriate for us to approach, and we will have to examine what he says very carefully indeed before any decision can be made about whether to go ahead with a judicial review or not. But if there is any reasonable possibility at all that we could manage to get this decision changed, we owe it, not just to the people of Wisbech, I have to say, but to the people of Fenland as a whole. We owe it to them to take that opportunity. I'm not going to prejudge what's going to be said. there's no point in appointing a high quality independent council if you try and prejudge what they come up with. They're the experts. They know what the law is. They know what the possibilities are for a judicial review. But if there is any possibility at all that we can change this wrong decision, then I will be more than pleased to make sure that we take that opportunity and do apply for a judicial review. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowden. Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. For the members of public in here, I'm the chairman of the farming committee for the whole of Fenland. Now, Mr. Leader, you may remember not so long ago working with Carol, we actually requested a full tox report regarding this incinerator to protect Wisbeach's fruit and vegetable supplies, which their farmers are panicking about. None of that has ever officially come forward. Something I really need that bringing up into. Yes, I support this motion. I, for one, am sick and fed up with the back teeth for these big companies, whether it be incinerators, reservoirs, housing developments, throwing the money around and getting the deals done before it comes through us. For me, our council's here, planning's here, that's what it's here for. If we say no, no means no. Not throw your money about somewhere else and get it passed in the back door. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cutler.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. I support the motion. I know you are liaising with other councils, but does this council have a figure, a percentage in mind to contribute towards the costs? Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more people for debate? Councillor Senate Club.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say that the incinerator will affect most of Fenland. This is why I support Councillor Tierney's proposal. I represent the people of Whittlesea as a councillor for the North West Ward. The residents I represent are concerned about the lorry loads of bottom ash from the incinerator being deposited in a pit in Whittlesea, as per the most recent Johnson Aggregates Liaison meeting. Furthermore, I'd just like to say in 2017, an MVB ship from Plymouth carrying 2,333 tonnes of unprocessed incinerator bottom ash exploded in the North Sea. The explosion caused by hydrogen gas from the unauthorised waste. This is just another example, as Councillor Taylor alluded to, of Fenland being used as a dumping ground. Instead of being people investing in it and regenerating Fenland, it's just being used for other people's rubbish. So I fully support your proposal.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Count and then Councillor Mrs French, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Very much in support of this motion by Councillor Tierney. It's an excellent motion written very last minute because fortunately we had a council date coming up. The deadline was passed, you allowed this to come forward. So it's done very quickly on the back of finding out that a very unwelcome decision had gone against the people of Fenland. So I'm glad that this is in front of us so we can add some weight to the argument. One of the comments as to why a judicial review would be could be successful would be if the decision was found to be irrational. I cannot get my head around the evidence presented, the views of the people here, the views of the people at County, at Norfolk, at West Lynn, all of these views coming up with the same conclusion that somebody can find a rational reason to be right and means that everybody ever asked on this subject, except for the people who own the plant, are wrong. That cannot be rational. It cannot be right. And I hope that the council can find something in there to justify that reasoning. I don't live in Wisbech, so I won't see the direct impact of that mega plant on my doorstep. But what I do is I use the roads around here. They're in a terrible state already. Our farm vehicles are really struggling with their large vehicles to get by. And now we're going to put wagon after wagon after wagon on our roads to deal with somebody else's waste. It's not Cambridgeshire's waste that's going there. It's primarily Norfolk's waste because they can't deal with it in their own patch. This decision makes no sense at all. And I totally agree with what Councillor Tierney says. We have to fight this until there's nothing left that we can throw at it. So it's really good that this has come in front of us today in this way. I've also been in contact with the Chief Executive of the county council to make them aware, because Councillor Tierney, back in, I think it was 22, also had a successful motion there that was backed, that the county council will do everything it can as well. And I've said, you know, if this judicial review requires some money, can we wade in behind? I haven't got an affirmative, but I've highlighted it. No doubt we'll be in conversation. I haven't got a negative either. So it will be a question of whatever we find out from the council to try and go there and see what the county council will do. But I have highlighted it, but also I wanted to just remind the officers, a lot of the evidence was supplied through that body. So let's get in contact with them early and try and see what they can spot and line them up as well. Is there anything they can find that we can put in front of the judicial review as evidence? This is an irrational decision. This is a great motion. Absolutely 100% behind it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mrs French and then Councillor Roy, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I fully support. I can't go over what Councillor Count has just said. Councillor Count and I both represent March North and Waddlesea, which takes in all the villages, including Elm, Coldham, Friday Bridge, etc. The roads just cannot take it. We know the state of the roads. I'm very pleased to say we do have the Deputy Chair of Transport Committee from County Council, Councillor Shaler, and he did give me a little note as possible. But I fully support this, Councillor Thierry. Thank you for bringing this. You know, it's the whole of the roads. March will suffer tremendously. We've got enough problems in March at the moment. So well done, Steve.
Thank you. Councillor Roy, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to go over the things that have been said. I think there's overwhelming support to challenge this incinerator decision. In my book, right is always right and wrong is always wrong. And this is not about us. We are merely keepers of this time. This is a decision that's going to affect generations to come. And if we speak to those people, they will tell you, you don't put a monstrosity of this size in a prime food growing area. And I fully support Councillor Tierney's motion.
Thank you. Councillor Walworth, please.
Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to sit there and say that, I mean, it goes without saying, to be fair, as a Wisbech resident, that I fully support the motion that Councillor Tierney's put in. I think I just want to resonate with some of the residents that it's not just something that's happening to you, it's all of us. We live in this area. We don't want this any more than anyone else. And I think what Councillor Count sat there and said about we have to give this everything we've got, we have to. We absolutely have to. If there's any moment that we have to throw money and effort and support it, it is now. So thank you very much, and I fully support it.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak on the debate? Councillor Hoy, would you like to exercise your right to speak?
So just to try and keep it short and sweet, really, just once we got the notice of this decision last week, it did sadly come as a massive surprise to me. I was absolutely devastated, as I'm sure everyone in this room. I don't think there's anyone here that wanted this at all from any side. Everyone was absolutely against this. So we got in touch with officers and thought, you know, can something be added? Because obviously the agenda had already been published, and as we've already heard, it was possible to add something under urgency. Now, the hope of this motion is obviously, as many people have rehearsed, so officers can explore whether or not we can have a case. Now, I'm aware from discussions with our own internal planning officers, and obviously the leader has mentioned that time isn't on our side, and we can't wait weeks and weeks and weeks because various sort of pre-action protocols need to be taken. Now, I am aware that obviously since we've had discussions with officers, I think some preliminary inquiries have been made, obviously not to kind of preempt today's decision, but just to have put people on notice so that they know that they need to start work urgently. Now, hopefully the decision being withdrawn is a good thing. None of us know what that means. It's absolutely unprecedented. We can speculate. We can hope it means something good. But I do feel that we need to all now be very, very, very careful with what we say publicly, because we do not want to jeopardise any case that we have. We need to be aware that MVV are likely to have their legal team monitoring everything we say. So can I really please urge caution? The amount of things I've seen on social media over the last week, and I won't get into it because I think it's been a very friendly debate, but people need to be please so careful, because they will be going over everything that's said with a fine-tooth comb. And we cannot have anything jeopardise that. Councillor Cutler raised the issue about funding. Well, at the moment, this preliminary advice, FDC are funding completely themselves. However, obviously, if it goes higher to a judicial review, we could potentially be talking hundreds of thousands. So I guess that if it came to it, I suppose we would have to bear that cost if no one else stepped up to the plate. And I can see the leader raise his eyebrows, and the 151 officers probably raising their eyebrows and saying, you can't commit us to that. And obviously, I'm not committing that to anyone today. But the reason for my comments, I suppose, on that is because on a personal level, I really believe that if we need to fight something, we need to fight it. Wisbech people pay their taxes too. It doesn't just affect Wisbech, as we know, it affects Skyherne, Elm, Friday Bridge, all of these places are affected and they all pay their council tax. And it does sometimes work, you know. Remember when we took the government's court on the Rose and Crown and the asylum seekers decision, whilst we didn't win that case, eventually they've given up and there are no asylum seekers in the Rose and Crown anymore. And I do think sometimes you do have to send a bit of a signal to government and say, don't mess with us because we aren't going to take it. Otherwise, they're going to just keep expecting us to roll over and put things on us. The final point I would make, just as a caveat to trying to commit Fenton to spending all this money, is, of course, I don't want Fenton to bear the whole cost because it wouldn't be fair. Obviously, if we have to, we'd have to. But the combined authority has said all along they were against the incinerator, and the county council have said that. So I don't mean this in a nasty way, but you have to put your money where your mouth is a little bit and put some money there. Same with Kings Lynn and West Norfolk, same with Norfolk County Council. And of course, if there's a crowdfunder, great. You know, why would we not want money from local people and businesses? I guess I didn't instantly think of crowdfunder because I feel a little bit cheeky saying to people, you're already taxed loads of money in your council tax. Can you also give us money to fight this legal case? It feels a little bit cheeky. However, that said, why would you not? If businesses are offering because of the strength of feeling to give us some money, why would we say no? So I think we absolutely must go ahead and do this. We must fight this as far as we can possibly fight it, because everyone, including us, as it's been mentioned, we live here too. We don't sort of live miles away like some people, like, you know, people have mentioned Claire Coutinho, of course, as a minister, she's not going to necessarily live in Wisbech, she's going to live in Surrey. However, we do live here. Some of us 100, 200 yards from the incinerator. I don't want to be breathing toxic fumes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Councillor Tierney, would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Actually, I'll stay sit down so that my voice can be heard. I've got to say, when I first heard this decision, like all of you, I'm sure, I was absolutely gutted. I mean, in all the years I've been in politics, I've never been as depressed as I felt when I read that result. And all weekend, it's just been on my mind and I've been thinking about it. This debate has helped a lot because it's wonderful to see everyone singing from the same page, if you like. It's great to see so many people have turned up to show a keen interest in this. Thank you so much for coming here. We feel like we're all fighting for what people want us to fight for, and that's what we're here for. Thank you even to all the people who I don't always agree with, but they're all fighting on the same side for this. So brilliant. It's been brilliant. In regards to the money, we can't commit to anything because obviously we need to encourage all the other parties to give as much as they can. I feel passionate enough about this that I will pledge right now personally to donate £1,000 to any crowdfunding that happens out of my own pocket if it goes to judicial review. And I hope anyone else who can afford to give any amount when it gets to that will, and obviously all the councils step up. I've done the best with this motion I can. I've had a lot of support with it, and I hope everyone supports it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Right, we'll now move to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hands. Can you keep them up while member services count you, please? Thank you. All those against? Well, it's not going to take you long to count, is it? And any abstentions, please? Can you announce it?
That's a unanimous in favour of the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well done, Steve. Ladies and gentlemen of the public, thank you for coming this afternoon. If you would like to leave now, you may, or if you'd like to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're more than welcome. But thank you very much for coming and showing your interest. Thank you. If we'll just carry on, Sam. Cross your legs. Right, we'll now resume the meeting with agenda item 7, to receive reports from and ask questions of cabinet members with portfolio holder responsibilities in accordance with procedure rules 8.1 and 8.2. In accordance with procedure rule 8.1, members will find the portfolio hold.
Yeah, we do.
Sorry?
Yeah, no, that's fine. We do it. One. Agenda
That's
item
right.
7, yeah. Yes, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Jan's saying we haven't.
No,
She's getting confused.
You did that one before, which is the question
Yeah.
of the leaders. That's
Okay,
right.
thank you. Sorry. In accordance with procedure rule 8.1, members will find the portfolio holders briefing report at pages 17 to 62 of the agenda pack. Procedure rules 8.2 permits questions to cabinet members about any matter which falls within their portfolio responsibilities, and members are reminded that there is a total time allocation of 1 hour for this item. If anybody would like to ask a question, can you please raise your hand? No? Thank you. So we're now going to item 8. We'll now go to item 8 on the agenda, which is a motion submitted by Councillor Hacknawaz with regards to bus services in Fenland. And this appears on page 63 of your agenda pack. Councillor Nawaz, would you like to move your motion? You have 5 minutes to present the motion and say anything you wish about it. Your next opportunity to speak will then be when summing up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Can everyone hear me? Thank you. We have, during the previous motion, seen why we are here, because we put our community at the centre of everything. Community at the heart of all that we do. We try to make things that little bit better, that little bit easier for our residents. And transport is an integral part of our everyday living, because so much depends on it. If we want to go and visit our friends, family, we don't have a car, we don't want to drive, or we can't drive, we need public transport. If we have frail relatives we wish to visit over the weekend, we depend on public transport. And the most convenient form of public transport, of course, are the buses. If we want to go to colleges or universities, we need transport. And in this particular area, it is again the buses that constitute the most convenient form of transport. If we need to go to the hospital, for example, We have parents, children we need to take to the hospital. We need a form of transport. Unless we drive, unless we can afford expensive taxis, we have to rely on the buses. If we go to work, we need some form of transport. And for many of us who either cannot afford cars or to drive cars or cannot drive or choose not to drive, we need public transport. Again, that is the buses. Unfortunately, the authorities, and let us be specific, CPCA's LTCP, that is the local connectivity plan, does not adequately cater for the needs of the residents of Fenland. And that accentuates the issue, the urgency, because Fenland has some of the most deprived wards, particularly north of Fenland. And that is backed up by statistics on the Cambridgeshire County Council's own website. CPCA has let down Fenland again. I have attended a number of meetings. Councillor Seaton has worked very hard with the Transport and Infrastructure Committee. I have done private lobbying. I have attended the meetings that I did not have to attend, simply to make the point, to highlight the deficiencies within that local plan. And despite the promises made by the mayor himself personally, those promises have not transpired. Yes, we have a few more services in the evenings, but we do not have adequate, and in some cases, no services at all at the weekends. Life does not stop at the weekends. People need to go shopping. Working people need to go their relatives, their grandparents. And it is very disappointing and concerning that the authors of this plan have not taken into account the needs of the very rural communities in Fenland, the people that really need public transport, and particularly the young people. I mean, do you know how expensive it is to learn to drive, and then to buy a car, and then to insure a car? I recently insured my youngest daughter, and the best quote we got was £2,000. Then, of course, the cost of the car, the petrol. And in these days of austerity and hardships, you would think that the authorities would try to make life better, easier, like we do here. We are here because we put our community at the heart of all that we do, in the hope that we can make life that little bit easier, that little bit better for them. But unfortunately, I am very disappointed that the CPCA on this occasion does not seem to share our concerns, despite repeated representations over a considerable period. Therefore, and by the way, my colleague, Councillor Christie, will fill you in with all the details of the missed opportunities, not once, not twice, but several times. And that smacks of incompetence at the head of CPCA. Therefore, I would propose the following motion. The council notes, Fenland District Council notes that the proposed changes to bus services are not commensurate with the needs of rural communities of Fenland District. Such lack of public transport contributes to social isolation, inability to take full advantage of educational and employment opportunities, and to take proper care of our health. And subsequent to social isolation, as we have witnessed during the COVID period, the mental health issues are accentuated.
Councillor Noaz.
Because we are.
Excuse me, Councillor Noaz, you've had more than your 5 minutes, so if I can ask you just to sum up, please.
I will, sir. I will, thank you. So the LTCP falls short of its own commitment, which was to make transport more accessible to everyone. Well, it has failed in that duty, and I, sir, therefore amend this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the proposal? Councillor Christie? You can reserve the right to speak, or you can speak at the end of the debate. When would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll reserve the right.
Thank you.
Sorry for this discussion, and members are reminded that they can speak only once.
Councillor Patrick.
Yeah, I must be in a good mood today, actually. I fully support this motion. Living in Wisbech for most of my life, I've watched bus services decrease. Villages are left isolated, Parson Grove, Murrow, probably Tid St Giles, Newton. All these places have seen bus services reduced over the years. I also feel that as an area of deprivation, that we are actually probably going to be funding the cost of providing transport for better off areas. And so I think it's therefore time that we actually fought to improve services so that people can get to work when they want to go to work, can get to where they need to go, stop, as he mentions, social isolation, and create something that's beneficial for everybody within our district.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Councillor Count, please, and then Councillor Carney.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you very much for bringing this motion forward, Noaz, because it gives us an excellent chance to actually highlight the deficiencies in what's being offered for the people of Fenland at a cost of £36 a Band D household. We're told the £36 is to improve bus services. I'm going to use the word poppycock because I'm not allowed to use the words that I'm thinking. Let's be honest. The £36 is because the Labour Mayor failed to get the bus service improvement plan money. The only combined authority mayor in the country to fail to get that money, or the letter said a lack of imagination, was Mayor Nick Johnson. And if we'd have got that, if there was a decent plan in front of government, we'd have got funding and the local people wouldn't have been taxed in this way. So that's why I say poppycock for the first reason. The second is it's supposed to be based on a bus strategy. And they've published and consulted on their bus strategy. Now, I didn't bother going to a dictionary to find out what a strategy is, because I think we all know what a strategy is. It is a plan you make to get you from where you are to where you want to be. That's a strategy. How do we get there? What they actually published and consulted on was a wish list. A wish list. We want earlier buses, later buses. We want buses to be clean, tidy. We want real-time information. We're going to have an integrated network. They're going to arrive at railway stations in time to hit the railway. And they named everything possible for a fantastic, all singing, all dancing bus network. But they didn't put any plan in. They didn't say how we're going to get there. They didn't say, actually, what are the outcomes that we want to see, and what are the outcomes we're going to finance, and where are we going to get the money? Because that bus strategy works if you have unlimited funding and unlimited time and unlimited powers. but there's actually no real route to get you from where we are today to this all singing, all dancing network. Because if you're going to write a strategy, you actually have to start with the outcomes, not I want everything all singing, all dancing. What do I want to achieve? I want to achieve people getting around the county for a number of reasons. Rural isolation, health, education. Those are the sort of things you want to achieve. And then you decide, how am I going to get some money and how am I going to tick them off? And you actually start lining up a bus strategy to actually match some of those things. And this is why I come back to thank you for this motion to exemplify why Fenland particularly has been let down. If you look at any outcome that you would want to deliver with a decent bus strategy through the eyes of the residents, better health outcomes, Fenland deserves it more than most. Better education, Fenland deserves help more than most. Economic growth, yes, fantastic economic growth in the south of the county, but economic growth through increased productivity, Fenland needs it most. There isn't a single outcome, a metric that you can look at where the words Fenland need it most wouldn't come to mind. And yet what we've got is the crumbs of the table, simple bolt-ons, dotted around in no coordinated fashion. Now I'm going to thank the mayor for one of my areas in a county perspective, Christchurch. They're now going to get a bus in Christchurch, which they didn't have before. Two, in fact. One's going to go between Wisbech, Christchurch and Downham Market. And the other one's going to go Wisbech, Christchurch, Manny Rail Station and Chatteris. And that's good because they've got something now. And I sent an email to the chair of the parish and the clerk to say, you know, how we ended up with these. They hadn't been contacted. The actual parish knew nothing about this and hadn't actually fed in that debate. Somebody had put it forward, but it wasn't there. And this has been published without that sort of input. Now, I don't know what the people of Christchurch want the most, but if I wanted health, yes, I want to go to Wisbech. That's probably the closest. If I wanted a train, though, to achieve the national network, I'd go to March, not Maney or Downham Market. If I wanted shopping, I'd go to Wisbech again. So is it actually the right route? Do many people want to get on at Maney and go to Christchurch and go from Christchurch to Maney? Because I can't really see how that's going to work. Then we've got other areas, like in my patch, Turbs. Turbs, a decent sized village. No support whatsoever left without anything going through there. That can't be right. That cannot be right to subsidise somebody to start at 5 AM and have an enhanced route around Cambridge City while you leave whole villages with no support at all. And that's because there was no strategy to match this against. It was a raid on people's pockets and then it was a spending spree trying to deliver as much as you can. And the last thing I talk about is the dishonesty about what it actually delivers. Because whilst this was absolutely the mayor's decision, nobody else's, to have a precept, all the money goes through the ringer together. So he says, I'm raising this tax and I'm going to deliver bus services. In the meantime, he spent the other money on subsidising under 25s, from £2 down to £1. Some people might think that's a good idea. £3.85 million to subsidise 25-year-olds to go about at £1 instead of £2. How would I explain to a pensioner in Turbs that's had their pensions raided for £36 a year that doesn't get a bus service, that they are now subsidising a 23-year-old who's finished university in a good job in the centre of Cambridge, that they can go home after a night out at midnight? How can I justify that? Because I can't. I'll bet your damn dollar Mayor Nick Johnson will never answer that question, but it's one I'd like to ask. I support this. We're hard done by. Thank you for bringing it forward. And what a tragedy that this wasn't better.
Thank you, Councillor. We have Councillor Carney and then Councillor Cutler, please.
So, again, thank you for bringing this motion forward. Now, some of you might know that 6 years leading up to July 2022, 6 years, I was driving for a stagecoach for my sins. And I operated out of Ely, so I used to cover the March, Chatteris, Ely, Littlethorpe, Surrey, Lee Market, and I changed jobs at the time when Stagecoach basically pulled all their routes across Cambridgeshire, and it was quite incredible because one of the routes they pulled was the service troll from Ely to Surrey, Newmarket, Cambridge. Now that was a cash cow because that was a double-decker bus. The first two services that ran in the morning was filled with either people going to work in Cambridge or students going to Newmarket to pick up the connecting bus to Burston Evans College. The point is, Stagecoach said it wasn't viable. How could it not be viable when it was guaranteed to fill a double-decker bus? Okay, that's one of the things. Now, I'm not going to rattle on too much about that because that's not part of this conversation. But the thing is that what always does seem quite prevalent in this area is that the bus services are disjointed. You can't get a bus from Chatter's to Wisbech without having to change at March to get either the 46 or the 56, either or. In my present main job role, I came across a lady in Chatter's 3 weeks ago, and she's got quite poor mobility. She's got cataracts, and as part of the conversation, I said, "Well, if you've sort of decided to see, you know, an eye specialist at the Anglia Eye Clinic in Wisbech," she said, "Well, I'd love to, but I can't get there. My daughter doesn't drive. I definitely can't drive." And she said, "Buses?" She said, "Well," she said, "forget it." She said, "No, I'm just going to suffer and struggle on." Anyway, point is that's being dealt with. But the point is, she highlighted exactly what's wrong with this area when it comes to public transport. If you can't get from Chatter's to Wisbech, you know, what's going on? Now, one of the things at the time when it was said about when Stagecoach pulled the routes was one of my former colleagues in Stagecoach used to work down in London under TfL, and he was a driver down there. Now, he said that TfL, the bus routes, as some of you might know, were actually franchised. Now, I remember at the time, the CPCA were talking about franchising the bus routes across Cambridgeshire as a whole. And my colleague said that in London, that was a game changer because back in whatever it was, 80s or 90s, when they changed over to franchising actually increased bus usership. It actually made it viable. I don't know why franchising hasn't been mentioned by the CPCA in recent months, but that's something we'll probably never know. But as I say, it's just disjointed, and it really would be nice to see the CPCA actually put the money where the mouth is. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cutler, please. And
Thank
then
you, Mr.
Councillor
Chairman.
Clark.
I support the motion by councillor Nawaz. I won't repeat everything councillor Patrick said, but I echo his comments, particularly for the rural villages where there are no buses, let alone a limited service. Thank you.
Councillor Clark.
8 years as a Conservative councillor, bus services were in decline, partly due to reduced government support. After the election of a Conservative mayor for the combined authority of Cambridge and Peterborough, which assumed the transport responsibilities for the county council, where the bus services further declined. After the last election of a Labour mayor, who was democratically elected, finding an authority in disarray, poorly set up, and with a high turnover of staff and management. The combined authority has now turned the corner with an experienced chief executive and much set up to deliver for Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. The increase in the precept was not the sole decision of the mayor, but was democratically voted through by the combined authority board. I'm led to believe the Fenland member did not vote or speak on this, but left the meeting after about an hour and was not replaced by a deputy. The mayor, Dr. Nick Johnson, said in a press release, following this decision, we will be able to offer more routes more frequently, services serving far more people more conveniently than is currently the case. Rather than keep playing politics as we've done in this meeting and previous meetings with the combined authority, perhaps it is time to engage and work with them for the benefit of Fenland. As given the results of voter intentions, the Mayor Nick Johnson is likely to be re-elected for a further term in 2025. So therefore, I will unable to support this motion as I would like to see us work genuinely closer with the combined authority for a better outcome for Fenland.
Thank you. Councillor Hoy.
Yes, thank you. I don't want to be one of those people that say they aren't going to speak and then everyone's like, sit down, but I really wasn't, because everyone's had probably a skinful of people talking today. But I do have to really challenge what Councillor Clark has said. Whilst I really did thoroughly enjoy a party political broadcast on behalf of the Labour Party, and I'm sure we all were thrilled by it, I am minded to be called to the fact that Councillor Clark was leader at the time when the combined authority was pushed by this council. Obviously not the only leader, I admit that. There was many other people that pushed it at the time, but a lot of people said that we were going to have these issues with another layer of government. Now, the combined authority, I don't think I don't think he's a councillor anymore because he's not in Huntingdon, but Nick Johnson, I don't think will win another term, because what has he done for Fenland, really? What can he, honestly, can you put your hand on your heart and say he's delivered for us? Absolutely nothing. He brought the council tax in last year. What have we seen for that? Nothing. This year he's going to increase it by 200%. What are we going to see from it this year? A couple of buses. Big deal. You know, people are paying over £100 a journey in South Cambs that we are subsidising, our taxpayers are subsidising. So I don't see what we've got. The Wisbech Access Study hasn't given us any money for that. Train rail line, where's that come from? I'm not saying that the previous mayor was perfect. I'm not sitting here defending him at all, but I don't think that anyone can say in good conscience that Dr. Nick has delivered for Fenland people at all.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I think I did want to just, sorry, if you may know, it'll be very quick. One thing that I forgot, I don't like this. I don't know the reasons why the leader left the meeting. He may indulge us, he may not. That's his choice. But I do take exception with people making party political points like that, because I had it done at County Council to me last week. I couldn't attend. I was actually really ill. I'm very rarely ill. But last week I was really ill with a really bad chest infection, and I didn't go to the meeting because I was ill. I don't want to infect people. Some people are elderly. Some people have poor immune systems that you don't know about, and so you don't want to infect them. So I was told, and had people making silly political remarks online, oh, you weren't at the meeting. Well, I'm sorry, but people do have sometimes good reasons. So unless your attendance is 100%, I probably shouldn't make those remarks.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Any more comments? Councillor Tierney.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I did just want to make the point that about the high turnover of staff for the mayor. I mean, that you haven't got a leg to stand on given the current mayor's situation with his staff and what's gone on. I mean, absolutely shocking remarks, completely ill-informed. Thank you, Chairman.
Anybody else? In which case, Councillor Christie, would you like to have your opportunity as the seconder?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. As previously declared, I'm a trustee and chairman at FACT Community Transport, and we actually currently provide a number of bus services for the combined authority on a not-for-profit basis. These are routes that FACT took over when Stagecoach ceased those services and basically left the residents of Fenland high and dry with no bus services at all in there. I fully support this motion, and I think through my experience of running much needed community bus services in Fenland, I feel it puts me in a knowledgeable position to contribute to this debate. As we've discussed, services in Fenland have been rapidly declining, with Stagecoach pulling out from a number of routes across the district. But the problem goes back to the CPCA's failure to secure any funding during the bus service improvement plan funding rounds in 2022, as Councillor Camp pointed out. I believe we were the only, or the CPCA were the only combined authority that failed to secure any funding whatsoever. So in contrast, North East Combined Authority secured 163.5 million. The West of England Combined Authority, 105.5 million. And even Greater Manchester Combined Authority, 94.8 million. Even looking closer to home, Norfolk County Council was awarded 49.6 million and Hertfordshire County Council 29.7 million. Cambridge and Peterborough Combined Authority got nothing in this round. And the explanation given was that the CPCA's bid was not ambitious and lacked innovation. Even in the further rounds, the CPCA has been awarded 2.3 million for each of the periods 23-24 and 24-25 under what's called the BSIP Plus Awards. But again, putting this into context, Hertfordshire County Council was awarded a further 2.97 million BSIP Plus funding on top of their already awarded 29.7 million BSIP funding. So the reason for bringing this to your attention is twofold. So first is the motion states the local transport connectivity plan, especially for Fenland, continues to lack ambition and innovation and goes nowhere near addressing the needs of Fenland, and Fenland is not receiving its fair share of the available funding for the proposals that have been put forward for the district. Many of those proposals are to extend existing routes, just making those routes more unviable for passengers to use. So while the LTCP continues to lack ambition and innovation, we will continue to see empty double-decker buses driving across Fenland as the services are not fit for purpose and need to change. This is all at the cost of the taxpayer, as the operators continue to be paid even if their buses are empty. And we continue to hear stories of how some subsidised services have a cost per passenger journey of £124, £76 and £74. How could this be considered value for money? Even the much hyped demand responsive transport options are running at £42.31 per passenger journey. I said, interestingly, the CPCA benchmark per passenger journey is £13.40, which has been recommended to be retained. And a quote from the CPCA's own documentation here, it said, "They're recommended that it doesn't change after changes were made by a new operator have, in quote, significantly reduced the cost per passenger to now being below the £12 benchmark." Just to point out that that was on the March 33A route. And the new operator that took that route over from Stagecoach was fact. So it's not just for saying that this had happened, but actually prove that with innovation and adapting the service to the needs of the passenger, this can be achieved. So secondly, public transport need is expected to grow as it is increasingly seen as a lever to drive social and economic growth. I was at a session last week with rail providers last week. Greater Anglia have seen a 110% increase in passengers compared to pre-COVID numbers, although the usage module has shifted and therefore needs to adapt. They mentioned anticipated growth in public transport usage over the next 5 to 10 years from 37 to 97% increase. The rail operators looked at bus services that provide what they call the last mile services, which in Fenland can actually equate to the last 5 to 10 miles from a station. This growth is very much driven by the younger generations of transport users for work and leisure. This generation is making what is called a modal shift as they're being priced out. The RAC itself states it costs over £6,000 these days to learn to drive. In Fenland, bus services need to grow in quality, frequency and coverage so that this generation can access employment and further education. It's all right to declare a £1 fares headline for under 25s. What use is this if there aren't any bus services to use? So this is why I call on full council to support this motion and to lobby the CPCA for the services that Fenland needs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Nawaz, would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you, sir. Just to address the points raised by Councillor Hicks. Sorry, Councillor Clark. Sorry, it's the somebody's placed the wrong. Okay. About the plain politics, this is not politics. This has nothing to do with politics. On a personal level, I have excellent rapport, doctor to doctor, with Dr. Nick. However, what matters is what happens to the residents that I represent? What impact have the policies which are being put forward by Dr. Nick Johnson? And I didn't want to name him. I did not use his name until Councillor Clark did. And we weren't playing politics until Councillor Clark spoke about playing politics. So indeed, he may be playing politics, we are not. And he seems to be confident that he may well, Dr. Nick may well get re-elected. Well, don't count your chicken just yet. We are still here. Now, I would, do I have a guillotine or time limitation?
If you could just sum up the motion, please.
As soon as you like.
I think the case is overwhelming. We have heard Councillor Gary Christie. We have heard other councillors highlighting in detail, in fact, the issues that we have, the discrepancies that there are. And the mayor has gone on to introduce a precept of £12 initially, with the result that bus services were reduced. So he's trebled it now. I would therefore propose that Fenland District Council resolves to call upon the mayor to review LTCP and proposed service provision in order to address the needs of the residents of Fenland. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Right, we will now move to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand and keep your hand raised till member services have counted you, please. Okay. Linda? All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. We'll now ask member services to reveal the outcome of the vote.
Thank you. The result of the vote is 33 voting in favour, 1 voting against and 1 abstention. Therefore, the motion is carried.
Thank you. Item 9. Item 9 is a motion on notice from Councillor Taylor and which appears at pages 65 to 66 of the agenda pack. Councillor Taylor, would you like to move your motion? You have 5 minutes to present the motion and say anything you wish about it. Your next opportunity to speak will then be when summing up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There's 2 big killer diseases in livestock on farms today. So we've got the blue tongue disease. It's a viral disease most commonly spread by midges. It primarily affects sheep and to somewhat lesser amounts cattle, deer, goats and camelids, such as llamas and alpacas. The vaccination is the standard and most effective measure that farmers can normally use to protect their livestock. But unfortunately, there is not yet a vaccine developed which is effective against the serotype currently spreading around Europe. So that within England, at the time of writing this motion, 99 blue tongue cases have been identified at 55 premises across 3 counties, Kent, Suffolk and Norfolk. The nearest suspected outbreak has been at Medworth, although this has now been found to have been a false alarm, which in turn possibly turns out to have been a TB reactor. But that worryingly, therefore, have not been able to confirm the current blue tongue outbreak is being transmitted by midges, which had been the transmission vector for all previous serotypes. So there's 2 types out there, and one of them they're really not sure about, and that's quite scary. So the council further notes that bovine TB results from bacterial infection, most commonly spread between cattle and wildlife. The TB is a disease which presents very slowly in infected livestock, months or even years after infection. Given that TB is zoonosis, which means humans can be infected, the TB is a notifiable disease which is primarily detected through testing of cattle rather than a result of animals becoming symptomatic. The routine test for BTB in the UK either uses a skin test, which is a single intradermal, SICCT for short, or they use a blood test. The frequency of testing depends upon the location of the farm, with Fenland currently being defined as being in a low-risk area. Nevertheless, the edge risk area requiring 6-monthly testing now reaches the border of Northamptonshire. It is getting closer to us and it will continue to get closer unless we stamp it out. As far as the farmers of Fenland are concerned, council notes that the risk posed to their herds and flocks is very real. The farmers have a real commitment to the health and welfare of their animals. The farming businesses can be significantly damaged financially in cases of blue tongue or bovine TB, either in their own animals or even if an outbreak is at another farm in the locality. The farmers are experiencing increasing amounts of stress, generally exaggerated by the threats of blue tongue, BTB, and other pressures, to the extent that there should be concerns as to some farmers' mental well-being. So the council therefore resolves that to contact our MP of Parliament, Steve Barclay, requesting that routine testing for TB be conducted using the blood test rather than the skin test, since blood testing is more accurate. Talking to one farmer last week, he emailed me. He's lost 150 cattle in 2 years to skin test reactors. But once all the animals had been slaughtered in the slaughterhouse, blood tested, and the sample, they was found to be TB negative. We all remember Geronimo, the black alpaca, a couple of years ago in the press, created chaos. He was shot. He reacted to TB. He was TB negative once he had been slaughtered. We need to sort this out. So Mr. Steve Barclay is going to be getting notified a lot that testing for blue tongue be allowed to be conducted by a qualified local veterinary surgeon, as opposed to the current requirement for testing to be done only by a DEFRA vet. Because at the moment, DEFRA can't get round for approximately 3 months to even see you. Another thing that we would like to put through is to contact CCC Public Health and North Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Care Partnership, asking them both to include farmers' mental health as a specific item on their register of mental health risks. But, and this is a very, very big but, farmers don't talk to people. We do not ring people up. And one of the reasons we don't ring people up, the minute we make a phone call, I've got mental health issues, within 30 minutes, we've got a knock on the door, firearms department, here to take your guns off you. We need to get that stamped out. The farmers don't talk, and that is one reason. A farmer without a firearm, it doesn't happen. We need them. You remove that firearm, you've got farmers in bigger trouble. So when you've got 150 cattle being slaughtered and not one of them being TB tested, and that's from one farm, how much of that is actually going on around the country each year? Big slaughterhouse in Gloucester, where a lot of the animals go that are TB tested. They're then slaughtered, they're then blood tested, they're then sampled and cultured, they then go to a big mincing factory. So even meat or cows that have been slaughtered for TB are in the human food chain. It ends up in your lasagnas, your mince pies, your beef burgers in the freezers.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Welcome to the real world of farming. It does happen. There is no rule to throw the animal out. I am led to believe by every ounce of paperwork I've got, they do go in the human food chain. Let's be notified of it properly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Do I have a seconder for the proposal, please? Councillor Carney. Do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak at the end of the debate?
Just want to make a very quick point, and particularly on number 2 about requesting testing for blue tongue be allowed to be conducted by any qualified vet. My father-in-law up in Lincolnshire, he's got a small herd of cattle, and I know all too well that now and again the frustration of actually trying to find a vet who's able to do TB testing. It's only a fortnight ago he was supposed to have testing done, and he's had to basically, the guy who came before, he's had to sort of say, forget coming because I can't wait any longer. He's having to wait for another vet. I don't know where that vet's coming from, but the point is that qualified vets do TB testing seem to be extremely few and far between. At the end of the day, as Tim's motion points, sorry, Councillor Taylor motion points out, any qualified veterinary surgeon should be able to do it anyway, because farming is one of them things, time is not on your side a lot of the time, and if you're sort of hanging around waiting, that's your livelihood. You can't get in because you can't move anything. So yeah, so if we can get this moved through, that would be pretty good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carney. The item is open for So the item is open for discussion. Members are reminded they're able to speak just once. Anybody like to speak on this? Councillor Tierney.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Taylor, for that informative motion. It's really interesting. Actually, I want to make a more general point, which is it's really refreshing to have somebody at FDC in this rural community speaking out on behalf of farmers and the issues that affect them, because it's so important, and I just don't think we discuss it enough. I mean, right now, all over Europe, farmers are protesting against policies that are damaging and harming them. And nobody seems to be speaking out for them. And it's just great to see that we are prepared to take a lead on that. I'd like to thank you for the motion, which I will be supporting.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak on this? Councillor Nawaz.
Thank you. Thank you for the motion, Councillor Taylor. I would support it on the grounds that it is a zoonotic disease. That is, it is transmissible. It is transmitted to humans, either through milk, hence now we have pasteurized milk. I think it's due originally to tuberculosis. Tuberculosis itself is a very serious disease, affects most of the systems of the body, and it is expensive and prolonged treatment. And I think prevention is better and less expensive than treatment. Also the impact on the farmers and their mental health because of the stress caused. I think everybody would agree that we need good, happy, healthy farmers who do the most important thing, that is produce the food that we eat. I would therefore fully support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Councillor Humphrey.
Yeah, clearly is one of the few members that has farming in his blood. I would obviously support this. I have to say I've been an arable farmer, not a livestock farmer, but since the land is now occupied by my daughter with about 120 sheep and 38 alpacas, I shared it with her, and her comment was fully supported. So on the basis of that, I'll fully support that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Humphrey, and thank Crystal for her support as well. Would anybody else like to speak on this motion? As Councillor Carney has already spoken, Councillor Taylor, would you like to sum up, please?
During my election campaign, I was advised not to get involved with national politics as we're only a local candidate for local council. That is something I've completely misunderstood somewhere along the lines, because most of my motions are mainly national issues, if not international. There will be a lot of questions and raised eyebrows tonight once a certain guitarist and a television presenter that the BBC can't and won't control get hold of this. Basically, once an animal has a reactor test to TB, that farm's got an animal movement order on it straight away. The said animal is then slaughtered, of which the farmer receives a very small percentage of the animal's value. It's called the gridding. So basically, the farmer is paid a very small compensation to the age of the beast what has been slaughtered. But you never see in a butcher shop or a supermarket a big joint of beef that says, you can have this cheap because this animal reacted to TB and the farmer got nothing for it. So somebody's still on the full pretense of a full earner out of it. As you have all seen with all the farmers' protests around the world, the industry is a massive force to be reckoned with. Now, therefore, the environment minister now has no choice but to listen and act. Look what Mark Drakeford and Labour is doing to Wales. We simply cannot afford that to happen here in England. Labour have already stated that all hunting with dogs, including trail hunting, will be outlawed if they win the general election. If this happens, then all country activities will cease. Where's that going to leave our industry? They will then start on the shooting. Once all shooting suffers, then all the fishing will suffer. They won't be happy until they've stopped. There's a new political party now set up, and it is run by farmers only. I'm in regular contact with them, and they have kindly agreed to sit on the fence for a while to give me a chance to get our motions put through and to give our own MP a good kick in to try and bring him into shape quickly. We are only the second council in England that we believe to have a farming committee, but I'm receiving a lot of phone calls, emails, etc. from other Conservative councils to ask if they were to set up a farming committee, would I take lead through Fenland to advise and work with them and let Fenland spearhead the leadership of farming throughout the country for the Conservatives. I'm already working with East Cambs, South Cambs, South Holland, Kent, Northumbria, not just them councils, but also their MPs. They really are keen to jump on board with us now. Now, this is achieving a very large area of support for the whole country, but you imagine as it is with South Holland, Fenland, South Cambridge, East Cambridge, working together at the moment. If we all get together and produce or know what each of the produces, what our outlets for that could be. That could be feed local with produce for local. But please keep in mind that each and every one of us needs a farmer at least 3 times a day, every day, 7 days a week. So keep the wheels turning, the diesel burning, and let's keep farming, Britain farming, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. That is absolutely, result of the vote, sorry, is 34 in favour, so that's unanimous. So the motion is.
Thank you very much. Well done, Councillor Taylor. We now move on to item 10 on the agenda, the final business plan for 2024-25. This can be found at pages 67 to 86 on the agenda pack. I now call upon Councillor Bowden as leader and portfolio holder for finance to propose the report. Councillor Bowden.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm proposing the business plan, as is usual, because, as ever, it is the leader of the council and the chief executive who introduced the business plan. Having said that, I feel it's a bit fraudulent because a lot of the hard work which is involved in the way in which this has been produced actually was performed by Councillor Tierney and his officer team. And they're the ones who've been responsible for making it as readable as it is and improving even on last year's version. And I'm very grateful to them for doing that. I'm not going to go into a great deal of detail on this business plan because it's already been widely socialised over a number of meetings and over a number of months. The draft business plan went to overview and scrutiny last month. Overview and scrutiny agreed it with the exception of one bit of wording on one performance indicator, and the suggestion that they made has been adopted in this final plan. Overall, the business plan outlines the challenges and opportunities that we have in 2024-25 and potentially beyond. And our corporate priorities are given in there, the ones to do with communities, environment and economy, but also the quality assurance, the quality organisation priority that we have to try to ensure that we act effectively, transparently and sustainably in actually carrying out the work that we do and achieving our other priorities. And there is now a 5th corporate priority as well, a cross-cutting priority to do with the transformation agenda, which is the way in which this council will need to operate in order to ensure that it is cost-effective and fit for the future. The final point I'll make, which is also mentioned within the business plan, is that we acknowledge the fact that the Conservative Party, which stood in the last election on a platform of trying to keep the council tax as low as it can, has managed to achieve that. And it's important that we not merely spend money wisely, but that we spend only the money that we need to spend on the services that we've got, and that we don't overtax the local population. I'm pleased to say that of the 318 principal area councils in England, we have the strongest position of all of them in terms of how we've managed to keep the council tax down over the course of the last 7 years. So it's a two-sided thing here. How much money do we take from the local population, and how do we ensure that it's spent wisely and efficiently and as effectively as possible? And that's basically what this business plan is about, and I commend it to this council.
Thank you, Councillor Bowden. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Tierney. Would you like to exercise your right to speak now or reserve your right to speak at the conclusion? Reserve. Thank you. The item is now open for debate. Remember, you may only speak once on it. Do I have anybody who'd like to start the debate off, please? Councillor Mrs. French.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, as this was discussed at Cabinet earlier today, I express my gratitude to not only Councillor Bowden, but also Councillor Tierney and the officers. We know that the officers put in an amazing amount of work to come to this. So well done to officers as well as Councillor Bowden and Tierney.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak on this debate? Councillor Count, please.
Very simple, very simple, very quick. Well done. Well done, Councillor Bowden. Well done, everybody. It's really, did I mispronounce something there? Very simple and very quick. Not sure then. Well done, officers, and especially well done, Councillor Bowden. This is an amazing achievement, and I think I'm very happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? In which case, Councillor Tierney, would you like to exercise your right to speak?
Yeah, just to say, as I always do, thank you so much for the kind comments, but it is officers, not me, that have done this hard work, and it's them that deserve the praise. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bowden, would you like to sum up, please?
No need to say anything further. It's all been said. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Members, the recommendation at page 68 is for full council to consider and approve the final business plan for 2024-25. Is that agreed? Yeah, it's everybody again. Thank you. Now move on to item 11. Item 11 is in relation to the corporate budget and medium-term financial strategy, to include recommendations in relation to council tax support, and the report can be found at pages 87 to 155 of your agenda pack. Members are reminded that in relation to this item, paragraph 15.4 of the standing orders requires that a recorded vote is taken. I now call upon Councillor Bowden as leader and portfolio holder for finance to propose the report.
Thank you, Chairman. Members will be pleased to hear, partly because I've got a slightly sore throat, that I don't intend to go through this 70-page report on a page-by-page basis. I assume that most of you have now seen this. This, again, is something which has been socialised over some period of time. So a lot of what is in this budget is not new to people. In fact, quite a lot of the information within it was seen when the estimates were put forward in the December meeting of Cabinet. And that paper was also then taken to overview and scrutiny last month and considered there as well. But there are changes in this, particularly changes in the numbers compared with that figure which was announced in December. Because in December, it was estimated that our expenditure would exceed our income by some £539,091 in 2024-25. This paper goes the other way around, and it budgets for a £2,515 surplus of income over expenditure. Now, I should first of all really make a comment about the work done by officers in producing these papers, not just for this budget, but year on year on year, and managing our finance performance. Mark Saunders is primarily responsible for putting all of this together every year and does an enormous amount of work in ensuring that it's prudent and consistent and informative in the way in which it's produced. I will make reference also to Peter Catchpole as our Section 151 officer, who looks over the whole thing and takes overall responsibility for it, as well as Sean and the rest of the finance team, all of whom play a significant part in ensuring that our finances are operated efficiently and effectively, and that these reports are produced in a consistent basis year on year. And this year that we're currently in, coming towards the end of the financial year, it has been quite a difficult year for the council. And from a financial point of view, there have been three things which have particularly been notable. The first is that the high rate of inflation has finally fed through our system and has particularly hit in this current financial year. The second is that there have been, in this financial year, quite excessive temporary employment costs, particularly not exclusively in the planning department. And thirdly, we have continued to have excess costs, which we haven't been able to recover, for temporary accommodation under our homelessness obligations. Now, action has been taken to try to redress some of the issues which we've seen this year. On the inflation side, we've now absorbed into our budget that period of high inflation, and we are looking forward to lower inflation in future years, making the budgeting more manageable. As far as the temporary staff costs are concerned, a significant amount of work has been done already to recruit individuals to vacant posts. More work will be done on that, and we will also be looking, officers will be looking at ways in which we may be able to restructure departments, particularly on planning, so that we can manage to reduce the excess agency costs there even further. And finally, on the temporary accommodation costs, as you know, we've purchased some, well, between 29 and 31 properties, or are in the process of doing so. Some of them won't be purchased officially until April. And we will be utilising those primarily for temporary accommodation in order to ensure that we are able to recover from government many of the costs which currently we're not able to recover from individuals who are in hotels or bed and breakfast. Now, I actually have to make an apology here to Mark Saunders. Every council by law has to produce a balanced budget every year. However, we as councillors often use a shorthand, which isn't correct, but I'm going to use it because it's what we always do. We talk about a budget being a surplus budget or a deficit budget. A surplus budget if your expenditure is less than your income, and a deficit budget if your expenditure is greater than your projected income. Now, in practice, of course, legally, all of the budgets are actually balanced by transfers to or from reserves. But we know what we're talking about when we talk about a surplus or deficit budget, so I'll be using that language. And it really is a sign of the amount of work which has been put in to the budget process for this year, that the figure which went to overview and scrutiny and went to Cabinet back in December of having a projected budget deficit for 24-25 of £539,091 has now been changed to a projected surplus in these figures of £2,515. And you might wonder, where did that figure of £2,515 come from after all the other adjustments? And it hasn't just been plucked out of thin air. Because after making all the adjustments with all the changes which have been made and all the new information which has happened since that 539,000 figure was originally produced, we were in a position of having a projected deficit budget of 114,000. But that was on the basis of a new system that has been brought in, which is that in our medium-term financial strategy, we now work on the assumption that the amount of council tax that we gain from residents actually stays the same year on year on year. Now, that's different from what we agreed 4 years ago. 4 years ago, we instituted a policy of changing from assuming that council tax will go up by the maximum amount every year to assuming that council tax increases would be 0% each year. And that at the time was quite an audacious thing to do. We were told by some people it wouldn't be possible to do it. And it did present some significant challenges, I have to say, to our members of staff. And our members of staff, our officers, they met those challenges and more than met the challenges. That's why now we've set a higher challenge, which is to work on the assumption, and it's purely an assumption, that instead of having a 0% council tax increase, despite the fact that there are more houses paying council tax, or more people in houses paying council tax every year, that we would aim to take no more in council tax in total than we took the previous year. Had we continued with that and actually brought that before us today, as I say, we'd be showing a deficit budget of £114,000 and a council tax decrease of 1.62%. Now, 4 years ago, when we set up the new system of budgeting, I did institute and council agreed to create a budget equalisation reserve. And the purpose of the budget equalisation reserve was to try and keep the amount of money that we take from our residents in balance. So in those years where we take more than we actually end up spending, the budget equalisation reserve would go up. And in those years where we hadn't taken enough, the budget equalisation reserve would go down, meaning that the general reserve wouldn't be hurt by any individual year where our expenditure exceeded our income. Partly thanks to the very hard work of officers, my plan failed. And it failed because in each of the last 4 years, the amount that we've taken from our residents has exceeded the amount we ended up spending in the year. So that budget equalisation reserve, which was meant to go up and down depending upon how each year went, that budget equalisation reserve has increased every year, year on year, and it's now standing at more than £1.8 million. Now, this is a very good cushion that we've got without using the general reserve, so that if there is a difficult year, if there is a bad year, then we can manage to utilise that budget equalisation reserve without going to the general reserve to manage to meet that deficit. And it's important that we have such a cushion available to us, because the challenge that we face, and the challenge is laid out quite clearly here in the medium-term financial strategy, the challenge that we face is such that we may need that cushion in order to transition from where we are now to where we will need to be as part of what the transitional arrangements we have with the transformational challenges that we've got in front of us at this time. So overall, we are in a very strong position compared with many councils around the country. Back in November last year, the Local Government Association did a survey, and 1 in 5 council leaders and chief executives across the country feared that they'd need to issue a Section 114 notice in the very near future. The Section 114 notice, it's sometimes said in the press, it's the equivalent of a bankruptcy notice. Well, it's not, but that's what they claim. Where a council, or rather Section 151 officer, says that he believes, she believes, that in the year, the expenditure of the council is going to exceed the available resources to the council. 1 in 5 councils fearing that that's going to happen in the near future. We're in a very far stronger position than that. Having said that, there isn't actually any room for complacency. We will need to make significant changes, structural changes in what we do, in order to ensure that we will be able to continue to keep one of the best council tax records in the country. And I very much hope that we'll be able to do that, but I'm not claiming it's going to be easy. If it were easy, everyone would be able to do it. But nevertheless, we're in a strong position, not merely to avoid a Section 114 notice, but to continue down the path that we've started over the last 4 years for some significant number of years to come. It is unrealistic to say that we will continue to cut the council tax year on year on year. But whilst it is possible to do so, if we can cut the council tax and still manage to collect as much money as we need to finance that particular year's expenditure, then there is no excuse for us to take more money from the residents than we actually need to. So that is a summary of what we have here in the budget. As I say, I won't go through each page on a page-by-page basis, but I'll be more than happy, Chairman, to answer any questions that anyone may have, and I'll commend the budget to the council.
Thank you, councillor Bowden. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Tierney, would you like to exercise your right to speak now or reserve your right till the end of the debate? Reserve, thank you. The item is now open for debate. You remember you may only speak once on this item. Would anybody like to start the debate? Councillor Nawaz.
Wow. And I thought medicine was complex. Thank you, and it is pleasing to note that we will be nowhere near the 1 in 5 councils that expect section 114. I know there are a number of councils, some not too far from here. 2 have already had it, and 1 was very close to having it. And I think is a case for thanking the team concerned, officers for doing a sterling job, the leader and portfolio holder, and all the members involved in producing this very complex document. Particularly when inflation has been very high, double digits at times, and I know about the excessive employment expenditure, temporary employment expenditure, since that case has come to the committee that I sit on. It was a difficult issue, expensive issue, but it is good to know that it has seen a resolution. The temporary accommodation is, of course, another issue that haunts many a council, and it is therefore also pleasing to note that has been resolved. And I would like to say thank you for very good housekeeping to the officers and to the members concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak on this motion? Councillor Tierney, would you like to take your opportunity to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. Nothing to add.
Thank you. Councillor Bowden, would you like to sum up, please?
Nothing further to say, Chairman.
Thank you. There are no further speakers, therefore the detailed recommendations are set out at page 88 of the report. In accordance with the requirements for recorded votes, member services will now call out each of your names, and you must then indicate whether you are for, against, or abstaining from voting on the recommendations proposed. Please unmute your microphone to respond and then mute it again when you have finished. Member services, please can you now take the recorded vote?
Thank you. I'll call names out in alphabetical order. Councillor Barber.
For.
Councillor Benny.
For.
Councillor Bowden.
For.
Councillor Carney.
For.
Councillor Christie.
For.
Councillor John Clark.
For.
Councillor Sam Clark.
For.
Councillor Connor.
For.
Councillor Count.
For.
Councillor Cutler. For. Councillor Mrs Davis. For. Councillor Lucy Boyce Beard. For. Councillor Mrs Jan French.
For.
Councillor Hicks.
For.
Councillor Hoy.
For.
Councillor Humphrey.
For.
Councillor Imafidon.
For.
Councillor Mrs Mayor. Oh, she's gone. Okay. Councillor Meekins.
For.
Councillor Murphy.
For.
Councillor Nawaz.
For.
Councillor Oliver.
For.
Councillor Patrick.
For.
Councillor Purser.
For.
Councillor Rackley. Councillor Roy.
For.
Councillor Seaton.
For.
Councillor Sunnyclough.
For.
Councillor Summers.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
Councillor Tierney.
For.
Councillor Warwork. For. And Councillor Wallbard.
For.
Thank you. That is unanimous for
Thank you.
Thank
The
you.
recommendations have been agreed. Item 12 is in relation to the council tax resolution for 24-25, and the report can be found at pages 157 to 160. Members are again reminded that in relation to this item, paragraph 15.4 of the standing orders requires that a recorded vote is taken. I now call upon Councillor Bowden as leader and portfolio holder for finance to propose the report.
Thank you, Chairman. This council tax resolution is a legal requirement, and it not merely contains what we've just agreed, which is a council tax requirement for our council of £7,927,495, which is an increase from the 7.8 million last year, but also in the 8 parts to this resolution puts that in the context of the overall job that we have as a council, as a collection authority for dealing with the full council tax charges that there are, which are levied on our residents. The resolution's in front of you. I'm not going to go through it to each of the 8 items, but it does break down the parish council and town council levies that there are, shows what the different valuation bands are in each parish and town, and also notes the amounts of money in section 3, which all the other precepting authorities are requesting. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowden. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hoy, would you like to exercise your right to speak now or reserve your right to do so at the conclusion of the debate? Reserve, thank you. The item is now open for debate. Remember, you can only speak once on this item. Would anybody like to start the debate? Councillor Hoy, would you like to exercise your reserved right to speak?
Yeah, I'll keep it very brief, Chairman. So I just wanted to make the comment that I think it's absolutely appalling the levels that other authorities are charging. I know obviously there is a case for a rise in some instances, and I'm not saying that we should never have any rises ever anywhere, because as we know, inflation, various projects that people might need to take on from time to time. But the level that has been levied by the county council and the combined authority, I just think are absolutely eye-watering, and they are actually going to have a massive impact on people's finances. And it's just terrible, really. And I don't think that we should just have this debate without mentioning that. I mean, I know the fire service is putting up, the police everywhere is putting up, a lot of the towns and parishes. No, it's just not good. And I know that some people find it easy just to kind of put it up because it's not their money, and when you're raiding someone else, it's a lot easier to do, but it's not right. And I just wanted to say thank you to Chris, really, because it's so rare to have a leader that's actually pushing for council tax freezes and cuts, and it's refreshing. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bowden, would you like to sum up, please?
Well, I'd like to thank Councillor Hoy for the comments that she's just made, but she's entirely correct. This is not our money. We're talking about the money of residents who elect us to look after their money and their services, and we owe it to them to be as efficient and effective as possible, and not just as a default to assume that each year the council tax or the particular authority's portion of the council tax will be increased by the maximum amount you're legally allowed to do. And it's lazy politics, to be quite honest, that so many authorities, it has to be said, of all political parties, that so many authorities have that attitude. And I wish more councils were supportive, as this council is, in having exactly the opposite and saying we will take the minimum amount from residents that we actually need to in order to provide the services that they need. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowden. As there are no further speakers, therefore, following the revenue budget for 24-25 having now been set, the council is required to pass the resolution set out at pages 157 to 160 of the agenda in order to set the council tax requirement with effect from the 1st of April 2024. I will now ask member services colleagues to ask each member in turn to vote.
Thank you. Councillor Barber.
For.
Councillor Benny.
For.
Councillor Bowden.
For.
Councillor Carney.
4.
Councillor Christie,
4.
Councillor John Clark,
4.
Councillor Sam Clark,
4.
Councillor Connor,
4.
Councillor Count,
4.
Councillor Cutler, 4. Councillor Mrs Davis, 4. Councillor Foyce Beard, 4. Councillor Mrs French,
4.
Councillor Hicks,
4.
Councillor Hoy, 4. Councillor Humphrey, 4. Councillor Imafidon,
4.
Councillor Meekins,
4.
Councillor Murphy,
4.
Councillor Nawaz,
4.
Councillor Oliver,
4.
Councillor Patrick,
4.
Councillor Purser,
4.
Councillor Rackley, Councillor Roy,
4.
Councillor Seaton,
4.
Councillor Senate Clough,
4.
Councillor Summers,
4.
Councillor Taylor,
4.
Councillor Tierney,
4.
Councillor Woolwork, 4. And Councillor Woolard.
4.
Thank you. That again is unanimous.
That's been passed. Thank you very much. Agenda item 13, constitutional amendment. Agenda item 13 can be found at pages 161 to 169 of the agenda pack and recommend approval of amendments to the council's constitution. I now call upon Councillor Bowden as leader of the council with responsibility for governance to propose the report.
Thank you, Chairman. There are 5 recommendations in the report. Recommendations 1 and 2 update the financial limits for delegated authority. These limits have remained unchanged for many years, and these bring them back up towards the sort of figure which was originally intended. Recommendation 3 allows for the one-off nomination of alternative nominees for outside bodies where outside bodies permit that. And recommendations 4 and 5 will make, where there are references to the corporate management team, it will add to that also the assistant directors. And that's because 14 months ago we had a change in our structure. The assistant directors are now working with the corporate management team in a very constructive and coordinated way. And it's important that our constitution reflects the new structure which is working. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowden. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Mrs Davis. Councillor Davis, would you like to exercise your reserved right to speak?
No, I think basically this is a paper of common sense and, you know, things have changed over the last few years and it's quite right that from time to time we look at how the management is, you know, what they can actually do and can't do. And this paper is very much needed at the moment. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bowden, would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you, Chairman. No need to add anything.
Thank you, members. The detailed recommendations are set out at pages 161 to 162 of the agenda. Are these agreed? Thank you. Item 14, Senior Management Pay Policy Statement. This report can be found at pages 171 to 181 of the agenda pack. I now call upon Councillor Bowden as leader and portfolio holder for finance to present the report. Councillor Bowden.
Thank you, Chairman. There is a legal requirement for every council in the country to adopt a senior manager pay policy statement each year. Now, there is some misunderstanding sometimes about this, sometimes deliberate misunderstanding, I believe. Some councillors think it gives an opportunity to say that our senior staff should receive less money than they do. Want to even say that it gives an opportunity for us to say they should receive more money than they do. But that's not the purpose of this paper. If we were to decide either of those two things, I think that HR would have something to say about it, if not an employment tribunal. The purpose of this is more that to give publicity to the senior manager pay policy that we have, to allow residents and other analysts to compare what we do with other councils and to make judgments based on that. So whilst it's put before you as something asking you to adopt, It's really a matter of just to accept this is what our policy is, and this is what we need to present to the outside world as our policy. So I'm saying all of that now just to try and preempt, I may not be successful, but just to try and preempt any member who might try to amend this motion in the hope or expectation that a senior manager's pay may go up or down. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowden. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Tierney, thank you. Would you like to exercise your right to speak now or reserve your right to speak after the debate? Reserve, thank you. The item is now open for debate. Remember, you may only speak once on this item. Would anybody like to open the debate? Councillor Tierney, would you like to exercise your reserved right to speak?
Nothing to add. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Bowden, would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Just grateful to members that no one took the mischievous opportunity to say anything which would have been inappropriate in this motion. I just ask you to adopt it as is required. Thank you.
Thank you, members. The recommendation is at page 171 is for full council to adopt the senior manager's pay policy statement for 2023-24. Is that agreed? Thank you. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this afternoon's meeting. I would like to thank you for your attendance and to confirm that our next meeting will be the annual council meeting, which will take place at 4 p.m. on the 13th of May, 2024. Thank you very much.